Keep my hand up here so you guys can see my hand. So searching through my memories to see if you're still there, afraid of all the things that I might find.
Good day, everybody. Welcome to the Dr. Ned Show. I'm Dr. Neda Amani, and it is my pleasure to have Joe Brownrigg join us today. Joe, welcome.
How's it going?
Good. So good to see you and so good to have you here.
Yeah, been a long time. I got my Real You shirt on. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, so. My goodness. No, I didn't know.
Repping the Real You, so.
That's awesome. I didn't notice as we were taking a while to set up today.
I was hiding it. I was saving it for when we were filming. So.
You're perfect. Joe, it's been a while since we've connected, and it's so great. We're doing, this is our first Zoom show video, and it's great. I feel the laptop's a little bit further away, but I feel like you're in the room with me. So I'm really glad that you can join me and our guests today at The World in sharing what's really important these days, which is how our inner world, our inner healing, really creates the outer world and our experience of life. You've been an inspiration to me since I've known you. I've learned much. I've really learned a lot from you, and I keep learning every time we connect in some which way or another. I learn from you. And I thought it would be great for you to share your journey, your healing journey to date, and also introduce the concept of music is medicine, as you are a musician and a singer, songwriter. So we have a special treat for everybody today, including myself, where we're going to have you share your journey through music, actually, and also treat us to a performance. So on that note, I'm gonna let you take it over.
Sure. Well, same to you. You really helped me and inspired me. I met, just for the benefit of the audience, I met Dr. Amani through a work program. I'm a police officer in Ottawa, and she did a program called The Real You, which I'm wearing the shirt of, where the officers were allowed to go in and sort of do a very comprehensive medical, not just medical, everything, mental, emotional, spiritual, everything, just a big program. And I did that program at a pretty pivotal point in my life when I was making some significant life changes, and I really appreciate the efforts that you and your team did. I'm one person. I know you helped many. It's not just me. There were a lot of people that speak very highly of the work you did, so thank you for inspiring me. So you want to get into a little bit of my background. So well, I've been a cop in Ottawa for 19 years. I started really young. So I was 22 when I started on the job. So I basically learned how to become an adult and a police officer at the same time. And I came from a bit of a fractured background. My parents split up when I was very young, and we were grew up in social housing, all that kind of stuff. So I grew up tough, but it's all I know. So people tell me, well, that must have been tough. So that's all I know. That's just the way that you grow up, right? Long story short, I come by who I became very honestly, by virtue of my upbringing and then the profession that I chose, a very demanding physically, emotionally, and mentally job. I basically became a person who was embroiled in a negative attitude. My worldview is completely negative, completely cynical, guided by anger. There's no better way to put it. And it just kept getting worse and worse. With the adversity and struggles that I faced professionally and also personally, I didn't have a solid foundation to be able to actually live a healthy lifestyle. So from that core feeling, that core of who I am, everything got worse. Physically, mentally, emotionally. It just never got better. It kept getting worse and worse and worse. So I'm pretty open with it now. I have 7 years sobriety, but I developed a pretty significant drinking problem. I was self-medicating, and I didn't even know what the source of the problem was. I just thought, that was going to be the answer. And by the grace of God, now 7 years later, geez, that's something. I've been living a new way. And it's funny. It's like you said when we first met, and that's when we met. I was just beginning that whole journey, right? Now that I've changed what's in here, everything else is projected outwards, right? Physically, things are working better. Mentally, emotionally, it's like the train went from the wrong track to the other track. It's a long story. Everybody's got a story, right? But that's the best way I can encapsulate it. Where I come from, and sort of the focus on who I am, and getting that in the right way to be able to actually start doing positive things with my life, right? Music's always been a big part of it. Being a police officer is a small part of who I am. My passions lie elsewhere. I'm a family man. I got 3 kids, and I've been doing this since I was a teenager, right? For me, art, my specific discipline is songwriting, and stringed instruments mainly. I play drums and piano and all that, but mainly stringed instruments. The best way I can describe what this is to me is I can't tell you. I'm a pretty open person, and I think I articulate well, but I can't actually tell you the real deep stuff. It's too painful sometimes. It's too tough to go there. And it's hard for me, where I come from, to express myself emotionally. That's a big wall. That's a brick wall for me. It's funny, though, when I get this thing, and I start to explore through art, I can hide behind it. So I can tell you something very, very deep and profound that I don't want to talk about through the mask of a song. It allows me to get deeper into what my specific core issues are personally, or what's bothering me, or something that I want to talk about. And I can use poetry. I can kind of mask it. I can get to the issue and express it, but maybe not so directly as a conversation would be. Therefore, for me, it's medicine. Music is medicine. This is how I talk to you, right? I can get into a song and talk about something that maybe I'm ashamed about, or something difficult in my past that I'm confused about, and then I can put that out there. And the interesting thing is, it's funny how, as you progress with it, it's funny how other people relate to it, because we're all just the same. Mm-hmm. At our core levels, we're all just the same. We have this human condition. We're all trying to figure out.
Yeah.
So that's been one big thing for me, is trying to find a way to connect with people through my experiences. And as the years go on, and I get better and worse at certain things, I find that it does actually happen. So yeah, that's the intro to me. That's music. That's who I am, basically, and why music is medicine to me. I hope that answers your question.
Yes. Well, it just opens up a whole new set of questions that I know I'm curious about, and I think people out there listening are curious about. When we started to just get ready for today's interview, as we were setting up the cameras and such, you started playing, and this is obviously something new for me. It's out of my comfort zone. The Zoom thing is new. We were trying to figure things out, and I noticed within just a minute of you just started playing the guitar as we were getting ready, that my whole nervous system calmed down.
Oh, good.
And
good.
I felt just more peaceful, and so did our cameraman, Kevin, that we both did. And that's a small point, but that's also the big point, is that just you putting that was a soothing effect on us in an environment, and that soothing effect obviously is for the person who's engaging in that music or in that artistic endeavor. So I'm curious, when did you start realizing that, when was it that you started picking up, and using music to really soothe both your nervous system and your emotions, right? Because it has that effect. It's vibration, right? We're vibration, we're energy. Music is sound vibration. There's lots of research we'll share hopefully in videos in the future on how music has actual healing ability on our physiology, right? On our heart, on our nervous system. But how did you intuitively or mentally or emotionally get drawn, and when was that? Do you remember a moment?
Yeah, I do. It goes back to what I previously said. I'm a different person today. I'm the same guy, but I have very different views in the world. When I was a teenager, angry. It was starting. that seed of anger was starting, and it really blossomed into something terrible as the years went on. That's what started it. I came from a fractured background. My dad played guitar. I didn't have a good relationship with my father. So what does a teenage boy do, feeling kind of fatherless, right? Well, it's almost like a competition, and it's a way to get attention. I have 3 kids of my own, and I know how it works, right? If you're not going to get attention, you find the way that you're going to do it, right? So I'm being very honest with you about where it came from. My dad played guitar, and I wanted his attention. I didn't feel like I had it, personally, right? So I started playing guitar. And then it's almost, I'm better than him, right? And it came out of not a good place. That's what started it, which is interesting because as I spent time developing with it and falling in love with the craft, it turned into something completely different from what my initial intentions were, which is the interesting thing about any artistic discipline. It just takes you down so many roads, and all it does is just open your soul and open your spirit. Not a happy answer to your question, right? But
No.
I do remember that's where it started, And the other thing too is I some things I can't answer. We in songwriting and in art we call it the muse. You just feel a connection with something that you don't understand, and it kind of speaks through you. And I always felt a connection with the muse, whatever it is. How I could start being creative with an ability that I developed, and then I started saying things that I didn't even understand myself. They just started coming out. And it was like, what is happening here? And it was that spiritual connection, and then I fell in love with that. It was like, there's only one place that, for a time where I could get that expressive relief. And it was through songs, through connection with the muse. So it's just developed over time. Now, today, 41 years old, been doing this since I was a teenager. It's an obsession. I can't not play. I get angry about it sometimes because, sure, you get in these prideful moments where you're like, oh, I wish I wish I could do this for my job, and I wish I could make a lot of money doing this and all that. And then I get frustrated and you say, I put so much effort into this album and nobody's listening to it, or, just poor me, pity party, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is that no matter what, I just can't stop playing. I can't stop doing it. And I realized that no matter what, who I was or whatever my job was going to be, it's just going to be a part of me. It's just so ingrained in who I am now. I can't stop. It's an obsession.
Because it's your healing, right? It's your healing path, right? It's your expressive path. It's who you are. Art has that ability to really express who we are in ways that, like you said, you can't put words to it. You can't communicate it. But the sound and the words go beyond what they actually are. There's an energy behind them that you can't put in an actual conversation with somebody.
That's a good point. As I've developed in studying the craft and stuff, I've had a lot of great teachers and people that I really am inspired by, and I want to emulate. And it's an interesting point you make, because everything I kind of do and I create, it's a good reflection. I'll look in the mirror and be like, Joe, you just are who you are. You're not going to be one of your heroes, because that's who they are, right? And that's the way that they express themselves, and that's what people are connecting with, how truthful you are and expressing yourself, right? So I am what I am. I'm not a pretty singer. I'm not, and that's not what I'm ever going to be. I'm not going to be this Freddie Mercury, blow your ears off because it's so good. I'm not like that, but I'm just going to do something that maybe calms you, right? Maybe gets you to do a little bit of self-reflection, and it is what it is. And it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter because as much as I feed off connection with other people through my songs, that's a really cool feeling, right? It doesn't matter because sometimes it serves other purposes. Sometimes it's to give me an answer that I need personally, right? So.
Well, and the thing is that as you're saying that, I'm thinking, I'm a fan of Freddie Mercury too, right? But yes, he's impacted millions upon millions of people, and he will continue to do so. But the feeling that you get from, and I know this, I just listened to somebody, I've listened to your singing, and I don't agree with you that it's that you don't have
Thank
you. And we'll play the video clip at the end of this that you've sent me, but I don't agree with your judgment, but that is a judgment, right? And we talked about this at the last video with Jenna Fulton, is that when you're creating art, when you're creating something, we won't even call it art, when you're creating something, right? A dish, right? You could be creating in the kitchen a dish. In fact, we're going to have that creation next week, actually, Joe. So I hope you listen to this. But when you're creating a dish, when you're creating a piece of poetry, I love to write in poetry. Anything. When you're drawing something, when it's coming from the heart, it's the heart power communication that then reaches out to even one person else. You've done your thing, but it first starts with that healing for the self. It first starts with the self-soothing and the self-expression, which we all need, I think, in order to feel whole, right? You're saying the music is part of who you are. You can't live without it, because if you didn't have it, you wouldn't be human. You wouldn't be Joe. It's part of who you are. And so as long as we're being authentic and true to what our heart is calling us to do in our creation, then we can be certain that we will have impacted not just one, but many. And, the YouTube followers, or the number of, people that listen, or the number of people that are going to be, buying whatever we're wherever we're trying to share that art, I think is secondary. And Van Gogh, right, is a perfect example, right? That he never sold anything. The story goes anyway, that he never sold anything when he was alive. But yet, look what we do. Look how his art has impacted people and continues to impact people after the fact. And I think it's the movement. I want you to share this with you, because I saw this happening with you in our interactions, years ago, in your healing journey. That it's the movement from the head, from the mind, to the heart that is so key to not only our individual path of healing, which is painful. We think it's going to be bright and rainbows and all that when we're getting healthy and well in every single which way. But it's often quite painful. But is a really important movement that music and art facilitates, where we're moving from the head to the heart. And did you see that? Because I'm really curious how music. So you grew up with it in your teens, right? You found it as an outlet. First, it was from the mind. I'm going to get back at my dad. I'm going to be better than him, right? If I understood that correctly.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, pretty much.
Right, and that's in thought, right? That's the thought that I'm going to play better than him. But then you started really, I think, exploring it from your heart. And I'm just curious that when you consciously started embarking on the healing journey, right? When you consciously made a decision that you weren't going to be able to continue that angry, cynical way of being, using your own words. I don't want to put any words in your mouth.
No, it's true.
Did you notice, what did you notice changed in terms of your relationship to the music? And then was that correlated at all with this movement from the thoughts, from the judgment, from the mind to the heart?
Wow, that's a tough question. It's to be honest, you bring it up now, and it's not something I've really reflected on deeply. That's a good thing that I'm going to need to start working on, because you just pointed it out, and it kind of points to the art too. For me, I'm always cautious of being self-aware. Okay, like I want to, and pride is driving me in certain regards. I'm going to write a song that sounds like a hero of mine, and I'm really self-aware. And usually that art sucks.
Exactly.
When you're super self-aware,
yeah,
you just have to be,
yeah.
and be connected, right, and let that happen. So you bring up a good point, because it's like where is that connection from mental to spiritual? It ties into how I function and how I cope now, being a person who's committed to a positive worldview, right? And being an accepting and happy and content person. Daily, I spend a little bit of time on what I consider the three core elements of me, which is my mind, my body, and my spirit. I have to do a workout. I have to do a workout on each one of those every day. So the body's easy. The body's getting to the gym, have a little, right now I'm doing a body weight routine, so simple push-ups, pull-ups, that kind of stuff, right? But every day. And some days it's really tough. Last night I worked till 3 a.m. I'm pretty tired today, right?
Yeah.
But I have to do it. After this meeting, I'm going to do my workout. And it might be a light one, but at least I'm going to touch on it.
Yeah.
I'm touching on body, right?
Yeah.
Mind is also easy when you think about it. Learn something new. Challenge yourself mentally. For guitar, it's, I'm a big fan of these picking patterns, like banjo, so.
I love it.
You see?
I love that. I actually love the banjo.
Yeah. So you have to practice that stuff. It's not. It doesn't come easy. And there's a lot of days where I was trying to get the thumb and it's all over the place, And then eventually you just work on it, and you're now tuning your mind and you're honing it, you're learning a new skill.
Yeah.
And I find that sort of triggers, those three, the core parts of you. So I'm working on my body, I'm working on my mind, and spirit. There's the hard one. What is spirit? How do you work on your spirit, right? Where do you even start? Mm-hmm. How do I do a workout for spirit? That took a lot of time and practice. Some people do mindfulness, or yoga, or just emptying your mind, or something like that. I did a thing where I would basically envision myself in dire circumstances and stuff, and just try to evaluate who I am and what my responses to things are, and how am I handling this human condition, and how am I handling my life. And it was heavy lifting. Self-evaluation was heavy lifting, and saying, who am I as a person? Where come to the realization that I'm guided by negative thought. That didn't happen overnight. That wasn't I got to change everything tomorrow.
Yeah.
There was a lot of heavy lifting there, to the point where here I am today, and I try to focus a little bit of my day on spiritual discovery. So it ties into your question of where's the connection between mind and spirit. They do connect, but I think it's the same thing. I think mind, body, and spirit, it's all together. Exactly. If your spirit is strong, if I've worked out my spirit enough, mm-hmm. I will have the fortitude to handle my life when my body fails me. I will have the fortitude to handle my life when my mind fails me. So spirit's actually the most important one. If my spirit is strong, and I've spent enough time in my youth and when I was able to do that heavy lifting, I am prepared for the inevitability when my body and mind do fail me. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. And the fact that you're pointing to your heart, I said heart, but you said spirit, right? I
Same
said,
thing.
And that's what you're pointing to, and it's true. You're right. And in actuality, I was reading somewhere that the energetic waves, right? The waves, the electromagnetic waves that are emitted by the heart are 5,000 times more than the power of the brain. And we've been taught up till now, and I actually think that's the strife-filled world that we have, is because we've thought that actually our mind is the one that's leading us and is in control. But in fact, the most powerful aspect of our being is our heart, which now you've said is actually, you're right, is our spirit. And I've thought about spirituality, and I know the importance of spirituality in so many ways from my own life and our work in medicine, actually, that the spiritual journey being so key to health and well-being. But I somehow didn't put the two together until you just said it, that the heart is really, you're right, it's the spirit. It's the spirit. So how does that heavy lifting look like for someone? Because I know, if it's okay, I think you've told me it's okay to share this, so I'm going to share it. But we can edit it if you're not comfortable with it. But you had a spiritual transformation as part of your wellness journey, and you mentioned that being really critical. So, what happened? What happened in that spiritual transformation part, that awakening, I guess? And I think it's tied to your awakening of consciously choosing, correct me if I'm wrong, music as a vital part of your everyday being. Because I think before you had that spiritual awakening, before you had made that commitment when you were drinking, right, to cope, I think you flipped from the drinking. There was a lot I know that went on, and you can share whatever aspect of it that you want to share. But I think the spiritual transformation and the conscious choosing of music as your path to now well-being replaced, the anger and the alcohol and all the other things, which was what we see with, people who are, let's say, using food to self-soothe and self-medicate, or, over-exercising or overworking, or so many ways that we just haven't been taught really how to deal with the stress of life. Our officers, someone like you, our cops, are dealing with this crazy, intense added stress that no one really else, when working with you guys, no one else really has, is forced to face that kind of stress in their life, luckily, but you guys do it day in and day out. So what was that? I don't know if you caught the question in there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll speak to two things there. So sort of the replacing of the obsession, there was, for me, it was drinking in the past, and it was an obsession with drinking, right? I needed a lot of work to be able to overcome that. and a lot of help, and I still have to do it every day, right? It doesn't just go away.
No, it doesn't.
So,
No.
but you bring up a good point. You often see that with people who you're not going to fix core emotional problems or things that you're dealing with in a day.
Yeah.
But you also have to find healthy coping mechanisms. I do think you're right. I think for me, whether I'm conscious of it all the time or not, I think I really fell into my music as a part of that, as looking for an avenue to replace it, right? As an example, I'm in my basement studio here that I've built for me and the kids, right?
Yeah.
And when I was drinking, I would never have the energy or motivation to do that, to actually commit myself to building this little environment. And one of the first things I did after I stopped drinking was I said, that's it, I'm building a studio. So I did do that, right? So it was part of it. I'm not going to sit here and claim, I've replaced an unhealthy obsession with a healthy one, because I had my other battles too. Things you mentioned, like food and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The old retail therapy thing, when you're starting to get really wound up and you have, I can't drink now, I got to go somewhere else. I'm going to go shopping, something like that, right?
Yeah.
So you got to be on guard, because there's always these unhealthy habits that are going to come in, right? So that's the replacement thing. And I think you're right. I think you hit the nail on the head there for me. This was a healthy one, that I was able to get into this. That one worked, right? But it's not a simple fix. It's not just that one little thing. There's a lot going on here, right? So, and then you spoke about my job a little bit and the stresses. Policing, what a difficult ride it's been. I'm not done yet. I'm 2/3 done. We do 30 years right before we get our pension. Very, very challenging to manage. The toll it takes on you physically, doing shift work, wearing the gear all the time, just everything, right? Emotionally, the things you're seeing, the people you're dealing with, and, spiritually, right? Mentally, spiritually, the whole thing. It attacks you at those three core sort of aspects of who you are, right? That I sort of, the way that I look at my life, anyways, constantly being attacked. So to learn how to cope and manage with that is, I'm not even going to say I got it figured out. I'll let you know in 10 years. I'll try to retire healthy and happy, right? I'm doing pretty good right now. Like,
you are.
Yeah.
And so what is it that would you say that heavy lifting you're doing, I would say, so you talked about the body, and being so important and, committing to that. You made a huge changes in your food intake. You made huge changes in the way you ate. Do you want to touch a little bit about on that? And then what is that? So the days, because I think right now, everyone watching, I'm having 3 days where, I've kind of disconnected from my more, because you're aligned and then something hits and there's so many things that hit. And then you just kind of feel like you're back again and you're struggling to really be back in that positive space. And every time I try to be really aware and say, okay, I'm not back at square one, because I am so much more forward, but you kind of do feel that way. You feel like you're back at square one and that you have to pull from this reserve sometimes that is so difficult. So how do you, and the food is important, the movement is important, but how do you do that heavy lifting when you really feel like you've had like 100 punches and you just don't know, and yet again, you have to get up again?
Now, okay, good question. For me now, having tried to live this life now for a significant period of time, it's about recognizing that I can't do heavy lifting every day. Some days are better than others. So I'm going to have days where I feel like I make a lot of progress. I have a really good day. I hammer out a wicked workout. I write a new song. I have a breakthrough on the guitar, learning a new picking pattern or learning something new. It's like, oh man, what a day. I want to do that every day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then the next day, then life happens and the kids, have their issues and what's going on. And then we're a bad day at work and I'm like, I can't get up. I don't even feel like doing a push-up. And I got to hammer out a workout. Like, give me a break. So what do I do that day? I touch on it. I just make sure that I touch on physical, mental, and emotional, or spiritual. Just a little bit, okay? I can't forget about it. I have to do a little bit today. I don't have to go crazy today because I'm tired. I'm exhausted. A little bit today. Okay. And it's just to keep the habit and keep the routine, right? And then tomorrow's a new day. And then if I have the ability or things are starting to work out, then I'm going to, maybe it's going to be a good one. I don't know. So take each day as it comes and don't be so hard on yourself, And I'm so hard on myself. I'm like this, just sort of where I come from, and I get this competitive drive to just kick ass every day. And it's like, settle down, Joe. Settle down, man. just be chill, bud. Just
Yeah.
take care of yourself. Take it slow, and everything's gonna work out. You're running a marathon here, pal. You're not sprinting every day, right? So, we're our own worst enemy there. You be hard on yourself all the time and hold
Yeah.
yourself to these such lofty ideals, and you forget, you just like everybody else. We're this human condition that I mentioned before, right? So
Yeah.
that's how I do it.
That's actually really good.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense. And that's actually a
Yeah.
really good point. So before, let's say like 10 years ago, because you've been on this like conscious
Mm-hmm.
healing journey for now about 7 years, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, it started before that, but yeah, sobriety for
like
7, right?
7, yeah. So let's say 7 to 8 years. And then before, what were the percentage of your good days versus bad before? Because I think this requires reminding when we're in a dark space or when we're having a hard time, is just reminding ourselves we're making progress. Things are improving. I am able to deal with more now than I did before. I am able to. So do you ever gauge that? I like quantifying things, I guess. I don't know. I don't think it's the greatest thing to do, but I do. And so do you have an idea from before, like how many good days would you have where you would see the world in a more positive way versus now?
You're bringing up some good points for me to reflect on here. I'm going to have to do some thinking after our conversation here. That song that I sent you
Yeah.
that I think is applicable, it's called Running Backwards. And we spoke about this before we went on air here, but I reflect often on how I used to think. And it's all relative. What I thought was a good day back then, would be a day where I was winning, right? Things were going the way I wanted.
Yeah.
Hard liberty, And I look back on that now and I say it wasn't always healthy, just because I get my way in, terrible circumstances or whatever it is, doesn't mean it was a good day or you were being healthy, Joe. I have a completely different outlook. I call it a 180-degree turn. I came by the way I was, honestly, and then to change and be healthy, I had to turn around 180 degrees. So when I looked at something and I said, that's stupid, I had to stop myself and say, actually, it's not stupid. I know you think it's stupid and everything's telling you it is, but you have to look at it the other way around, that it's a good thing. And that's really hard to do because you have to change the way you think. You have to consciously change the way you think and say there's a good side to this. I use the analogy of I spent most of my early life staring at my shadow. And I've used this as a lyric in a song, actually. Staring at my shadow and saying, look at how dark and terrible that thing is. It's the worst thing ever. Darkness, darkness, darkness. And then one day I decided to turn around 180 degrees and I said, oh, there's the sun. Wow. The whole time I was staring at that darkness, I forgot that there was something behind me. It was a completely different way that was also part of what was happening. Right? So, I went on a bit of a tangent there, but I think it maybe
that was a
your
good
question.
tangent.
Yeah.
No, that was a good tangent. Yeah. So you would be more in the space of staring at your shadow before, and therefore you used alcohol and just right.
Yeah.
And then to be able to cope with that now experience of the world. And versus as you started to really look at the fact that, oh yeah, actually behind me there's a sun. Then,
and it ties into the song Running Backwards that I was speaking about. That song was written a couple years after I sort of decided I was going to be sober. And it was a reflection on how I used to think. And the title is Running Backwards. And I said, I used to do everything the wrong way, running against the wind, right?
Yeah.
Falling down all the time, making poor decisions. But I got real comfortable doing it my way. Even though it was the wrong way, and I kind of knew it was the wrong way. Mm-hmm. A positive day to me back then would be, but it's mine. That's the way I decided to live, and I can do it however I want. And it's kind of pride-based, and not healthy at all. But I learned how to operate very well that way, very functional, and it gave me passion, and it gave me energy, and it gave me a fire, and it guided a lot of what I did. And then when I decided I wanted to live the other way, there was a period, especially early on, where I felt passionless, where I was too accepting and too content with everything, and I was forcing this acceptance of things that I knew were wrong and all this kind of stuff. So very confusing time for me, right? So I wrote that song, Running Backwards, as a reflection on how I used to think and how I felt free. Doing it the wrong way, but it was my way, as opposed to, settle down, go with the wind, take care of yourself, look at things the right way, be a good father, right? Be a positive influence. and where trying to reignite that passion in a different way. It did not happen overnight. I'm still working on it. I'm still working on it. I don't know if it's ever going to go away. There's that push pull on those things, right?
It's a constant push pull. It's constant.
So you'll hear that song. Yeah. So, you guys will hear that song in that video that I sent you, which I made a few years ago, and listen to the words. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the way I used to be and how I had passion and drive because I fed off the anger and I fed off the negativity and I liked it, to now, where do I go from here? There ain't much drive. And what started me to write that song was I wanted to write a song, and I was challenged. I was drawing a blank. And I was like, what's going on? Writing songs used to be so easy because I could tap into the anger. I could sing about something I was peed off about. And nothing was coming to me. And I was like, oh no, nothing's coming to me. What am I going to do now? And look what happened. I ended up writing a song about how I used to think and how I think now. And it was about feeling passionless, but I wasn't. It's one of my favorite songs that I've written personally, right?
It's a great song.
That's how it works. That's how being a songwriter works. You're just like, what just happened to me? So, yep.
I have so many questions. I'm trying to park them. So just practically for people, and I want to hear this in your own words now because we haven't had this conversation in a long time. When you're, let's say, at work right now as a sergeant, you're a sergeant with work right now. When you have a series of really, really difficult days work, right? And it's a challenging time, and we know that there's lots happening that's unfortunately more serious that you and your colleagues are being called to. And so much respect, I have so much respect and admiration after working with you guys that I want to send out that call to everybody out there as a police officer, first responder, and the civilians that are supporting you for the work you guys are doing, particularly right now. It's a very challenging time. When you're having a number of days that are really, really difficult right now, what do you do to get to your, happier, calmer place? Whereas maybe before you would be angry or, maybe have a drink or, eat poorly. What do you do now that's really different for the most part than before?
Yeah, well, I don't do that. I don't do the drinking. Yeah. That's I've done a lot of research personally in that way of self-medicating, and I'm never going back there if I can help it. That's for sure. What do I do now? Oh man, family first. Just focus on the little things. I built the kids a rink in the backyard this year. Just get out there, get busy with the kids. Do something that takes your mind off whatever's stressing you out, and you're never going to go wrong focusing on family, right? The people that are close to you, that you love the most. That's kind of another replacement mechanism, where maybe I was neglectful in the past in my duties. I wouldn't say I was ever a bad dad, but I could have been better. You know what I mean? Now I'm at the point where it's like, okay, now I'm really just going to focus on the small things and really appreciate the small things, the things that I take for granted, right? Step outside of your little self-centered bubble. My problems are not the universe's problems. My problems will resolve themselves for better or worse. But I'm going to step back right now and I'm just going to say, what can I give to others, right? What's my service to other people? And I'm going to relish that, and I'm going to focus on that and be thankful that I have the opportunity to do that. Right?
Right.
Does that make
Whereas
sense?
before, yes, it
I was
does.
blind to that.
That was, thank you for the therapy right now, the intervention. I needed to hear that more than anybody out there right now. Whereas before you were thinking more about woe is me, right?
Yeah, it's too self-centered, and that's a big core spiritual issue that I had to overcome, and I think a lot of young people do. This ain't all about me, What am I? I'm a little piece of bacteria on a speck of dust in the grand universe, right?
Yeah.
Why am I so focused on all these really minor problems? I mean, they're important to me. They're all encompassing to me, But the thing is that I just need to focus on what am I trying to be in this world, right? And what I'm trying to be is of service to other people and giving to other people. And in the old days, I wasn't even on that floor. I wasn't, I was not thinking that way at all. It was, what about me? What about me? How's everything reflecting on me? And that's what's making me angry. you know, and I had to get out of that cycle. For me personally, pride and arrogance and self-centered nature, being selfish generally, you know, those are some of the core issues that I have. You know, I still fight with it. You know, I still fight with it, right? I think it's natural in a human. I'm only going to see the world through my eyes. That's the only way I can see the world, is how it relates to me. You know, I'm kind of forced into this this body and this existence that is selfish in nature, and it's hard to get out of it. But you have to force it. You have to force it out to recognize what you
Joe? How?
Well, I'm not. I know. I'm not claiming I got it all figured out. I feel I've done a lot of spiritual progress.
Yes.
I feel I have.
Yeah.
You know, I've had some adversity I've been able to overcome, and I do have some strategies that work for me, and I think they work for other people too if they think about it. And I think the simplest way I can describe it is what I've already said with the mind, body, spirit, just touching on it a little bit.
Yeah.
What I just spoke about is a little bit of a spiritual workout. You know, we're starting to struggle on how do you do a spiritual workout. Well, what I just explained to you is a spiritual workout. Is reflecting on what I just said and what part of that is true to you, right? Because everybody will have their own experiences, but they say, you know what, maybe I was self-centered in this particular interaction with me, and what kind of person did I want to be in that when I take myself out of it, you know? So you're starting to be a little bit harder on yourself.
Yes.
Not to the point where you're beating yourself up, but you're being honest with yourself, right?
Yes. Yeah, which we're not taught really how to do that. And then how did your relationships, I know your relationships transformed in that. A lot, right? Whatever you're comfortable with sharing, that how your relationships maybe at work, at other home with friends, how did your relationships change? Because that's the beginning of the change in the external world that we see, where you've talked about how once you did that 180 and looking at the sun rather than your shadow, everything started to now be sunnier from inside, so therefore the reality that you were experiencing started being sunnier, right? You got promoted. There's a lot that happened from that choice to look behind and say, oh, well, actually, there's a sun that's shining bright.
Yeah. I recognized that I was starting to help people, not on purpose, just by simple conversations like what we're having today. I recognized that I was of service to other people, and it was as a result of the gift of my adversity. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does.
I had a gift of adversity, struggles that I had to endure that were very difficult, and they could have broken me. But because I had to endure those, I was now in a position where the ability to be of service to other people just came to me, and that felt good. It felt like it was worthwhile. That. Like that, all of that struggle did have when you look back on it.
Yes.
I don't remember so much of the bad. I do remember now how it feels, and it feels good, right? The biggest relationship impact was my wife, obviously. She's a saint to deal with me the way I was in those old days. She stuck with me and she helped me. When it was helpless and it was, there was a lack of hope there. So she always says her biggest observation is that I'm more present now. I'm more present, which is a big one, right? Especially when you're an active father and you want to be, there for your kids and stuff like that, that I'm a present, active, engaged father, whereas in the past it was a lot of shutting down, leave me alone,
because you were in your head. That's the movement that we see moving from our head. We're not present, we're scattered, we're distracted, we're not connected to our intuition, we're not connected to our power when we're in our head. But when we move into our heart or into our spiritual selves, where, like you said, it's not about me, it's not about my plight, but I do have a role to play in taking the hand that I've been given and using that pain that I've been through to now be of service. That makes us that forces us to be fully present, actually.
It's funny you say that. I got a tattoo. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right there.
Yeah.
It's hard to see, but
I can see it. A little.
I call this my arm of reminders. Okay. So it's all reminders, spiritual reminders. And it's funny what you just said. You said the hand you've been given, and I just spoke about enduring, the adversity of my gift. And that tattoo says "Survivor, Endure," and underneath it is a card hand in poker. It's pocket queens, and it's all about that because I feel like I was dealt pocket queens. I had a rough upbringing and chose a difficult career. And some people would say, man, you got a bad hand. I said, no, I got pocket queens. I didn't get the best hand. I didn't get pocket aces, but I got pocket queens. That's pretty good. You know what I mean? Because the adversity helped me to get there. So it's funny you
Well,
mention that, because I actually have that on my
isn't that?
yeah.
It's funny, and it kind of is not, because I didn't know. Can you show it to me again? That's amazing.
Yeah, it's hard to see, but it might be backwards in the camera.
Yes, I do see. Yes.
And then the message there is survive or endure, and where that comes from is when you're in difficult circumstances, is your instinct telling you that I need to survive this issue? Survival.
Yeah.
You know, and you're gonna do some crazy things if you're coming out of a survival mode. You're backed into a corner, and you will lie, cheat, scratch, claw your way out of that corner, right, to survive. But if your mindset is the opposite, and it's I will endure the struggle, I'll take what's coming, I'll take the pain, because I know that if I do that, the outcome will be good. That you're going to make a choice in difficult circumstances to either be guided by this survival-based instinct, which is really it's a selfish instinct, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
It's based on me.
Yes.
I want to survive it.
Yes.
Or recognizing that it's not about me. I will endure it for the betterment of others. So it's a choice.
Wow.
And on my arm of reminders.
Yes.
Every once in a while, when I need it, I look down at my arm and I see, oh right, Pocket Queens, survive or endure. Right.
Wow.
I get it now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. And this is right now, the time we're in right now. Many people, like other times in history, when you're in the mindset, you're absolutely right, in the mindset of survival, people can do pretty heinous acts in that mindset. Good people.
Oh yeah. It's a recognition, like it's again, we're doing spiritual homework here, right? This is a spiritual workout. It's asking myself, am I a person guided by, this survival instinct, this selfishness? It's about me. I got to get out of this jam. And I got to protect me. Is that what's guiding you? Deep down, when you look at yourself and your core issues, you say, is that what's guiding you? Or are you a person who's saying, you know what, I'm going to stay in this jam because it's the right thing to do, or I'm gonna do the thing that's not it's going to cause more pain for me or more struggle if I do this, but I'm going to endure it because it's the right thing to do, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it can apply to ethical questions that you have, stuff like that, but
it applies to
who are you?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
It's just who are you? What's guiding you?
Yeah. What's
guiding you?
Yeah.
It's the devil on your shoulder or the angel on your shoulder. Which one, right? Which one are you connected with, right? So,
yeah.
I always thought that survive or endure was a poetic way to express that. Just a little bit different, and it's just something that it's meaningful to me, right? So
yeah,
and again, that went in a song. I use those lyrics in a couple of songs, "Survivor," "Endure," and stuff like that. So it shows how it all relates to this for me, right? And how I explore those issues through writing songs.
Writing music. Mm-hmm. Right now, people are covered with masks, and I find I do a lot of walking outside, and it really saddens me that the avoidance of eye contact altogether. And you can see people in their fear, in their angst, in their worries, because people are losing jobs and financial hardships, and, members of their family that are sick or struggling in one way or another, or themselves are struggling, that survival instinct that's within ourselves, that focus, then almost like really puts us fully into our head, really disconnects us from our heart, our spiritual selves. And so that we pull away not only from others, but even from our humanity, like you said, from our truth of who we are. Whereas, if we were conscious of it, even a few minutes, just a glance at somebody else to make their day who's having a hard time, just a recognition of their humanity, that someone's passing by you and is a human being that's just passing by you, and just a recognition that they're there, right? That they're passing by you. And never mind taking it to the stance that, if your neighbor is having a hard time, or if someone is having a hard time, and you're having a really hard time, but never forgetting that there's always, like Jenna had said in the video before, Jenna's video, so there's always someone who's having a worse time than you are. And can I reach out to those people in this time? Yeah, I'm having a really hard time, but there are people who are having a worse time, and what can I do? And I think during times like this, during wartime, it's so important that we don't forget that, because if we do, I think we've lost it all if we do.
Yeah. We're all in this together. It's easy to forget that.
Yeah.
It's easy to just see it from your own perspective, but we're all in this together.
Yeah, this is-
And yeah, the other thing too, as you know, be a healthcare professional, and I'm in the business of helping people too. It's exhausting. It's exhausting because you, especially if you're a person who has strong empathy, you carry a lot of weight that's not yours,
Yeah.
and it can sometimes push you to shut down even further. I definitely had those battles and still do, where it's just okay. You're giving too much of yourself right now. You got to actually take care of yourself first, because it can be very, very exhausting to carry that weight.
You want to help everybody, and
Yeah.
it's the wounded healer. It's the wounded healer.
Yeah.
And I saw
Yeah.
that within you and your colleagues, that I feel very blessed, and it was a gift for me to experience that with you and your colleagues, the majority of you and your colleagues, in the sense that people I don't think see that the calling of becoming a police officer, it's a calling on your life equivalent to the calling of serving as a physician or as a priest or a pastor. It's a very, very high calling that most people could not answer the call, right? It's to protect, it's to really be there in the worst times and repeatedly be exposed to the worst part of our shadow side, individually and collectively. And the toll that takes on police officers, and this concept that they're not resilient is really upsets me in a very, very profound way, because I see that even serving 1 week as a cop, that you guys are doing it, and your colleagues, and they retire, is just a mark of resilience. Most normal people could not survive, including myself, 1 week in your life, in your shoes. And so that's a testament to your resilience and to your power mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. But it's really our society coming and saying, you're being our keeper, you're serving us and protecting us, right? We have to also recognize that we have a role to honor you and protect you, and the appreciation we get as a physician. I get appreciation all the time from my patients, and I've had it, and that's a gift, that's a blessing, right? But I don't think, and that appreciation, although I don't do my work to get that appreciation, it does ease the pain that you carry as truly trying to be of service and feeling the pain of others. And, being a wounded healer, I'm a wounded healer myself, being a wounded healer and knowing when you're going to step back and take care of yourself, that appreciation goes a long way to say that, yeah, people are actually recognizing that I'm going out there to do my best to be of service to them. Whereas I don't think you guys get that as much as you deserve. And I don't know how we got onto this topic, but it's really the fact that, yeah, we are all connected in that way. And to know that thank you, right? That just thank you, officer, that thank you, paramedic, that thank you, whoever, right? Person behind that's giving me my coffee at the drive-thru, really acknowledging people and gratitude for them, I think is also what makes us really human.
I like that. Yeah, it's respect for what all of us are doing, right? We're respecting each other, right? So in terms of my job, you bring up some good points. It's a changing time in society right now, especially with society's relationship with police. It's been an interesting career for me because I started prior to a lot of the movement that's happening. And now I'm seeing a new generation come in. In some cases, I'm their supervisor, right? So things are changing in policing and what the expectations are from the public and what service we provide. I don't have all the answers, but a good friend of mine told me something very wise. And I was complaining about something at work, and people don't understand, and similar to the things you were talking about. And they take us for granted and all this kind of stuff. And he goes, "Joe, your job's supposed to be hard." Oh yeah. My job, I represent the state. We're if you have grievances or issues with government or the state, where's the only recourse that you have is your relationship with the police, because we are the visible explanation of that, right? We're the thing you see that represents the state. And I said, yeah, man, that high level of accountability is necessary. That the attacks on your decision making, all those things that you're seeing now, I said, these are all necessary functions of my job. And it takes a strong person to be able to withstand that, not take it personally. and say, you know what, we do have to reflect on ourselves, and we have to see that your job is supposed to be hard. And when you have that mindset from the beginning, that my job is not going to be easy, it's not like it's simple solutions. I'm basically taking the gray area of life, and I'm tasked with kind of making it black and white. I'm saying, you're getting charged, or you're not, or this kind of stuff, right? But really, it's all gray area situations, right, that I have to kind of figure out and be a problem solver with. Yeah, my job's hard, right? And it feels thankless, and it feels like there's no hope, and it feels like you're being attacked. But actually, Netta, like, you have to understand that that's part of it. So that helps me, because when I change my mindset to that and say, instead of getting angry about somebody not understanding where I'm coming from, I need to recognize that that's part of what makes it work. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah. And again, it talks about it's not all about me. This is a dynamic that exists between the job of a police officer in the state and then the public. And this is a dynamic that I have to navigate through being centered and grounded and healthy minded myself. And know who I am, so that, just like everything in life, so that I'm not thrown off by this dynamic when it becomes really hot or really really difficult and challenging.
On this topic, this may change. I'm 19 years in. Put it this way: if my 13-year-old, he comes to me and says, "Dad, I want to be a police officer." Okay, there's no endorsement for me right now. I'm being honest. I'm saying time out.
Yeah.
Before you go down this path, we are going to have several long discussions about what you're getting yourself into, right? Because it's not something that you make that quick decision about.
Yeah.
My feeling right now, personally, and I'm not saying this is, I can almost guarantee this is going to change as my career develops. But right now, if you ask me today, I am doing this so my kids don't have to, right? I'm trying to get them set up so that they can do some things that I never had the opportunity to do when I was younger. I want them to go to university. I want them to pursue, a profession like a doctor, maybe get into law. Follow your heart, follow your passion, but the world of opportunities are there for you. And I don't want you to settle, for lack of a better term, for doing this really difficult job of being a police officer. Not that it would be a disappointment, because it would be an honor. My kids would be fourth generation police. I'm the first one in my family, but on my wife's side, she has a significant history of policing. So it would be an honor to the family that if they chose that profession to go into it. And it may very well happen that one of the three of them decides that they want to do it. I have reservations about it now. My grandfather was an infantry soldier in Korea, in the Korean War, and he did it so I don't have to. He did it so I don't have to. And I had different opportunities, right? I'm a police officer out on the streets dealing with stuff, and I don't want my kids to have to do that, because it's not easy.
No.
That may change. I'm just telling you how I'm feeling today.
But,
I don't have all the answers, but that's how I feel today.
One answer that I do have is I've always seen you guys as, because you're a heart of service and because of the strength that I've seen within police officers that I've had work with, I see the future of policing as really piecing, right? Because you saw the change, in yourself.
As it should be.
It's what should be. And what percentage of policing is connected to people being unwell mentally, emotionally, and physically, right? What percentage of your work, if you were to say, I'm going to ask you, Joe, what percentage of your work is connected to people being emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally unwell? What would you say?
Anecdotal, and a statistic's a statistic, because I'm making this one up, but a large portion of it.
No, not anecdotal. You've been on the streets. You've done this work for 19 years, you said. What percentage of it is it?
Let's say 80. 80% is mental health related, and the other stuff would be administrative. Even crime and disorder issues.
Of course,
drug issues. I mean, these are, in a lot of cases, these are public health issues, right?
Exactly.
Health issues.
Yeah, and so if we really prioritize individual and collective healing, not only will we transform health care, the current disease care, which will be health care, because 80% of disease is preventable. But as you can see, you just said 80% of policing is preventable. Because you guys are being called to really majority of cases. And I've had, your colleagues telling me this, majority of cases are mental health cases, right? People who are struggling either mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, or all of the above.
It's a personal opinion for me, but it's gaining traction in policing circles. For example, the drug problem. let's call it the drug problem or the war on drugs.
Yeah.
Drugs are a crime problem, right?
Yeah.
Well, for me, a person who's worked in some very difficult areas of town that have, and worked with a lot of people who have significant addiction issues, actually addiction is a health issue.
It is a hit. Yes.
Addiction's a health issue. And then when you criminalizing a health issue, there is an element of choice in there, in my opinion, for some people. But the reality is that maybe we misdiagnose what the actual issue is and who's supposed to deal with it, right?
Exactly.
And that puts us in a difficult position, as the peace and order keepers in our streets.
Which you should never be. If you think about it, like, I would hear, one of our guys in the morning, maybe call out to a suicide, and then, and an overdose, and then some kind of domestic abuse. And then we wonder, like, who can humanly deal with that in one day, never mind one day, but day in and day out, right? And so those are issues that as a society we need to look at, to not have to put people who want to be of service like you in the work of policing and protecting and piecing. This is something that's really really important to me in terms of the future of policing, which is connected to the future of healthcare. Is really how do we facilitate that, and it all comes back to that individual healing, I think. So we got a little bit heavy, but I'm glad we went there because it's a seed that I think we can plant anyway. For the future. So do you want to take us on the journey of your song? Do you want to perform something for us?
Sure, I could play you a song that I'm working on. I can tell you a little bit about it.
Okay.
And then so it's a work in progress. I'm in the middle of recording it and playing it with different musicians and stuff. And it's not the best song I've ever written. It's just the most recent one. So
It's okay.
So, and it's got that picking pattern I've been working on. So it just may be an example of the work in progress. And what it's about, it's called You and I, and it's about it's an unresolved conflict from my youth, right? It's a relationship I had with somebody that's not resolved, and I'm not sure how to resolve it. I'm not sure if it's ever going to be resolved. It's kind of difficult to talk about. There's much in it that I'm ashamed about, but really, in essence, I'm just confused. I'm confused about the relationship, and I'm confused about how to resolve it, or if it even needs to be resolved, but why is it bugging me so much?
Okay.
So it's just one little avenue that I've just decided to explore. I just thought about something in my past, and I said that's worthy of exploration. And it's interesting. It turned into a song.
Okay. Right? Well, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, it's not fully written yet, but I'll try to pull it off here for you guys. So I got my little guitar. This is just a little mini guitar. Tucked in the corner here. So
it's a treat to have this live right now. Well, for us live, for me live.
I'll try to keep my hand up here so you guys can see my hands. So.
Okay.
Searching through my memories to see if you're still there. Afraid of all the things that I might find. Starting lines in the forks and roads, and loves are left behind. And versions of the stories that I once told. You and I were friends back then, now we're lost along the way. Maybe soon redemption we might find. Oh, the dream and the hope that I call you and I. Push and pull from way back when we were young and green. Thin and weak and smooth around the edge. And I loved you and you loved me. We were still best friends. Apologies that I tucked away with pride. Healing comes in baby steps, man, in slowly opened eyes. Maybe you could find it in your heart. Oh, the dream and the hope that I call you and I. should I call you now? Just a little ditty. I kind of screwed up a couple parts there, but I'm just working on it. Right? So,
Joe.
how do you play that song for?
Wow.
It's about somebody specific, and it might relate to somebody else different, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe the person will hear it and they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I think it's about me."
Wow.
I don't know.
Wow.
But that's what I'm talking about. I'm just exploring something, trying to put it into art. Maybe it connects with somebody. Maybe it relates to something in your life, and you're like, I understand the lyric there a little bit for something I'm dealing with. That's the fun part of this. That's really cool. That's a cool thing to have.
Yeah.
I don't take that for granted. I'm very lucky that I have that. You know?
So
Music is medicine. It is. For me, it is. 100%.
music is medicine. Your big heart is medicine. I feel like I want to give you I want to give you a huge hug. I'm so grateful, Joe. I'm so grateful to you. I'm so grateful of
Well, thanks for having me. Like, I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. And I love to talk about this stuff, and it's...
I feel like we can talk for hours. I don't want you to go. But my story, I don't want you to go. I hope I can have you back on again.
yeah, for sure.
I think this was so beautiful. I'm so grateful to have had this time together today. The song is beautiful. I wish you nothing but the best in everything that you're doing. And I'm gonna invite everyone to come and check out your music. We're gonna have a link to your to your music in the description below. We're also gonna we're gonna end the video, the close the video with your running
backwards, yeah.
running backwards, right?
Yep.
Right.
And that was the one I described earlier in an interview. It's just about how I used to think and how I functioned very well as an angry, negative person, and found a lot of drive and passion from that.
Yeah.
And then when I decided to change the way I was and stop drinking and be positive, I felt like I had no energy or passion. I was like, well, if I'm just going to be accepting of everything and content, is that all there is here? You know, kind of a weird thing, eh? But a few years later, I'm like, oh, it's obviously the right way to live, obviously. But it just shows the confusion that comes in. That's what the lyrics of that song are about, right?
Running backwards.
Learning how to function in recovery.
Yes.
Learning how to function.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and accepting ourselves that we're there. We're all there. That's how we're in this together, is that we're all there.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Joe.
You're awesome. Keep doing what you do.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay.
Big hug.
Yeah.
Take
Take
care.
care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Rushing off to the next fool's heart parade. We took our time, but it never slowed the pace. We were feeling dragged down by responsibility. The wind was pushing there, we were running back, and now we're on our knees. Got some time, so we looked up at the stars. Got a little perspective in what we are. We came in alone, and alone we'll go. While we take our rides, come to realize we can't go it alone. First we were running backwards, then we were on our knees. But we were feeling free, no matter how much we'd fall. If it takes all that learning, well, that's the beauty in it all. So maybe something's changed. We lost the shine in our eyes, and it disappeared, and we don't know why. The times got hard, we got tired and rough, but we brought it back. Yeah, we fixed it all up. And now we're staying clean, doing all the things we should. got the feeling that we aren't doing any good. We used to have a little edge, used to have a little fight, but as time's gone on, now we're feeling like we got to resign. When we were running backwards, yeah, we were chasing our dreams. Yeah, we still had hope, we still believed. Then it all got too perfect, yeah, it just got too easy. So maybe something's changed, we lost the shine in our eyes, and it disappeared, and now we don't know why. The times got hard, we got tired enough, but we brought it back home. Yeah, we fixed it all. Rushing off to the next fool's heartbreak.